This is the collision of common sense and comedy. This is Defenders Live.
Okie dokie. Normally, I don't usually start off like this, but I saw this article and I figured it was kind of important. The Center for Disease Control and Prevention issued an update to an earlier warning about a bacterial contamination in eye drop brands that have caused 3 deaths and 4 cases of eyeball removal, as well as other reports of vision loss. Now, I have to have reading glasses. I'm old. It's what happens when you hit this level. Certain things up close you can't see and whatnot. If you're watching on video, I'm having them on now. But that seems a bit extreme, doesn't it? I mean, 3 deaths and 4 cases of eyeball removal. The EsriCare artificial tears and Dulcim Pharma's artificial tears were part of an earlier February 2023 recall for, quote, possible contamination, which was echoed by the EsriCare brand as well. The CDC has worked in conjunction with the recall advisory to inform citizens about the contamination of eye drops that include a drug-resistant strain of bacteria called Pseudomonas aeruginosa. That's a lot. I will admit I didn't prep to read the word in advance. So I don't have, it's a bacteria that apparently eats your eyeballs and kills you. The bacteria can cause disease in plants, animals, and humans, and is known to be a resistant drug or to drugs and advanced antibiotics. Translation: once you get it, you're done. The CDC issued the advisory about, quote, infections with an extensively drug-resistant strain, end quote, of bacteria in 12 states that showed up in patients with keratitis, endophthalmitis, respiratory infections, urinary tract infections, and sepsis, end quote. Kind of runs the gambit there, doesn't it? I mean, quote, most patients reported using artificial tears. Patients reported more than 10 different brands of artificial tears, and some patients used multiple brands. The majority of patients who used artificial tears reported using EsriCare artificial tears, a preservative-free, over-the-counter product packaged in multi-dose bottles, according to the CDC. It may be preservative-free, but apparently it's not bacteria-free. Listed patient outcomes included, quote, permanent vision loss resulting from cornea infection, hospitalizations, and 1 death due to systematic. I cannot read tonight. Maybe I don't need my glasses. Death due to systemic infection, end quote. March 21st, 2023, the CDC updated its alert, identifying 68 patients in 16 states. 3 people died, with another 8 reports of vision loss and 4 reports of surgical removal of the eyeball or enucleation. Unfortunately, a severe eye disease can feel similar to a less serious issue, according to the Washington Post, who spoke with Dave Patel, an ophthalmologist at the Mayo Clinic. Quote, if it is truly bacterial, a direct eye exam will determine it since there are certain clinical features we can see what would suggest bacteria and a degree of infection. End quote. That was from the eye specialist. CDC warned that anyone who used EsriCare or Dulcim Pharma's artificial tears recently should look out for systems of eye infection, which include yellow, green, or clear discharge from the eye, eye pain or discomfort, redness of the eye or eyelid, feeling of something in your eye, like a foreign body, like you get your little dirt or whatever in your eye. Increase its sensitivity to light and blurry vision. I figure I should start this off because this is, people have had their eyeballs had to be removed over this. Like, this is, I'm doing my part as kind of a PSA to my fellow citizens. If you have to use the fake eye drops, please be careful, as you might end up losing an eyeball or two. Because that's rough. Like, that's rough, man. Can you imagine that? Holy cow. And all because eyeballs are dry. Ugh. Be careful. Don't end up like these people. Anywhoozin'. So the Energy Secretary, Jennifer Granholm, unveiled new climate and efficiency restrictions on air conditioners. Air conditioners. Despite the widespread criticism the Biden administration received after officials recently announced restrictions on gas stoves. So yeah, it's not enough to take away and restrict and everything. Gas stoves, which I don't know if I've mentioned anything about this from a public standpoint or anything like that, but the very few times I've ever had a gas stove, which wasn't often, but the few times that I have, I thought was fantastic because it not only do I think it cooked better, more evenly, it obviously got, heated things up faster, et cetera, et cetera. It was a great way if something were to happen and the power was out in the wintertime, you still had a way to heat your home. Granted, it's a little bit rudimentary, and you probably don't want to leave a gas eye running constantly, but you could crank the stove up. You literally turn the oven part on, and if you need to be safe, children or pets or whatever, you crack the door, and there you go. You could still have some heat in your home. So why they make a big stink about it, I don't. I do know. They want to get away from gas because it's not good for the environment. The new energy efficiency standards, which will apply to room air conditioners and portable air cleaners, will enter into effect next year. The Energy Department contended that the new rules will assist with, quote, tackling the climate crisis, as well as save consumers $25 billion over the next 3 decades. Room air conditioners are more commonly called window air conditioners. So if you live in, say, a trailer, smaller home, even the small homes, let's think about that one. Like the tiny home thing has become somewhat popular. You're not going to have, to my knowledge, an outside unit, a giant unit. You're going to have a little window air conditioner because it'll work better. It doesn't take much to cool the place down because it's not a big space. Quote, today's announcement builds on the historic actions President Biden has taken last year to strengthen outdated energy efficiency standards, which will help save on people's energy bills and reduce our nation's carbon footprint. Continue to engage with our public and private sector partners to finalize additional proposals like today's that lower household energy costs and deliver the safer, healthier communities that every American deserves. End quote. That was what Granholm said in a press release. How are you going to save people money when most homes, not most homes, I shouldn't say that, but when a lot of people live in a situation where they use and depend on, say, gas stoves, or they live and depend on window air conditioners. Because now you're talking about having, if they own the property, they're going to have to completely renovate their entire cooling setup. And if they have gas, now it's going to be heating as well. Or if they don't and they rent, now the homeowner is going to still have to renovate and redo everything entirely. At which point will then cause the rent to go up. So how does that save anybody money? Now, you could argue that, down the road, maybe it'll save money to the house or to the homeowner or whatever down the road. But you're talking about a really big hit. Like, this is a big change in a very short amount of time. To force these people to have to make these kind of changes is insane. It's not going to save anybody anything. And then let's think of the practicality of the whole thing. Again, you live in a trailer. Let's say you live in like a little one-bedroom trailer. They're not very big. 2-bedroom tops. Okay? They're going to have to go and put a heat pump outside and do the little cooling thing that way. Just so we're clear, it's not so much the places you live in. I mean, the what you're using to cool it down is not necessarily the problem. It's the insulation around it. If you live in a small trailer, I've done this. I recently, before I moved to where I'm at now, I had a very, small trailer, and it wasn't insulated very well. It didn't matter what I had the AC running at. Didn't matter what I was using. It always constantly kicked in because the insulation in the house was not keeping it cool very well, or warm for that matter. I had the same problem the other way around. But that's a lot of money to dump on people and expect people to come up with. The rules are the first federal standards for portable air cleaners. This is a funny one. The Energy Department asserted that the regulations mark a consensus among manufacturers. This is a quote from manufacturers, the Manufacturing Trade Association, efficiency advocates, consumer advocacy groups, states, and utilities, end quote. I don't believe that for a second. I don't believe that there's any consensus. I mean, okay. Let me correct myself on that. There is consensus, but it's only for those who are going to benefit financially from this. Obviously, if you're not going to be producing and making the little AC window units, you're talking about now the big heat pump, air unit that sits outside. Costs way more money. Cost to install, everything else. Those are going to skyrocket. Those people are probably all for it. The policies come weeks after multiple senior officials in the Biden administration repeatedly backtracked on new energy efficiency standards for gas stoves amid mounting criticism. Controversy over the potential regulations emerged early this year when the Consumer Product Safety Commission commissioner, say that 5 times fast, Richard Trumka, said in an interview that gas stoves are, quote, a hidden hazard, and declared that, quote, any option is on the table, end quote, for a national ban. How is it a hidden hazard? For the Consumer Product Safety Commission chairman, Alex Horan-Sarek, later posted in a statement asserting that neither he nor the agency plan to outlaw, or planned, let me specify clearly, planned to outlaw gas stoves. Doesn't mean they won't do it. They just planned not to. The Energy Department then unveiled forthcoming efficiency standards, which would impact approximately, quote, half of the total gas cooking top market, end quote. Proposed regulations would introduce a new, quote, maximum integrated annual energy consumption, standard. Helps if you proper emphasis on the correct syllable. It would introduce a new maximum integrated annual energy consumption standard for gas stoves, marking a change from previous regulations that prohibited constant burning pilot lights in gas stoves, but placed no limits on energy consumption. Officials noted that, quote, products achieving these standard levels are already commercially available to all or for all product classes covered by this proposal, end quote. And it cited an important and robust climate benefits in documents justifying the new rules. So it's all about climate change. It's all it's always been. Because having a pilot light running constantly in something is just a drain. Like, if we shut off all the pilot lights, we will never have to worry about climate change. It'll all magically go away. Climate change will show up and be like, oh, pilot lights are out. I guess we have no reason to be here now. And it'll toddle off to some other place. Some 38% of households in the United States use gas stoves for cooking, with a figure approaching 70% for states such as California and New Jersey, according to data from the Energy Information Administration. Those who use gas stoves often cite the easier temperature control offered by the appliance relative to electric alternatives. Again, I've mentioned that earlier. It pretty much, once you turn it on, fire, it's there. It's the temperature. You don't have to wait for the eye to warm up and then warm up the pan. Click. Fire. Already hot. Put the pan on. Warm pan up. Pretty simple. Granholm defended the consideration of new efficiency standards for gas stoves, during remarks this week before the House Appropriations Committee. Quote, this does not impact the majority, and it certainly doesn't say that anybody who has a gas stove would have their gas stoves taken away. There's no ban on gas stoves. I have a gas stove. It's just about making the existing electric and gas stoves and all other appliances more efficient. Yes, I love this. This is what makes it fun. Two stories rolled in one. It's beautiful. The energy secretary, okay, the lady who started this whole kerfuffle over gas stoves, admitted she owns one. It's okay for me to own it. I'm not going to tell you what kind it is. It might have the pilot light on all the time. Who the hell knows? But I guarantee you, I can have it because I am standing up here behind this podium. I am the energy secretary. I am the gatekeeper for all energy. A recent memo from the Energy Department indicated that roughly half, as mentioned a second ago, of the total gas cooking top market would be impacted by forthcoming efficiency standards. God, I feel like I'm having a stroke. Half of the total gas cooking top market. Half. That's incredible. But don't worry, it's not going to affect a bunch of people. It's just half. Half is not a lot. I mean, it depends on how you look at it. If you are a half empty type person, then no, that's not a lot. Half full might be an issue, but apparently Jennifer Granholm is more of a glass half empty type person. Granholm said in response to questions from Representative Dan Newhouse, a Republican from Washington, about the policy that there has been, quote, an awful lot of misinformation, end quote, about the agency's intentions. Quote, this does not impact the majority. And it certainly does not say that anybody who has a gas stove would have their gas stoves taken away. Again, quote, There's no ban on gas stoves. I have a gas stove. It's just about making existing electric and gas stoves and all other appliances more efficient. It's not the government's job to make something efficient. One, I would argue there isn't a way for the government to do anything efficiently. The government, especially the American government, was actually designed to be the least efficient organization on planet Earth. The initial design for the United States government was to be the least official thing ever. They were never designed to really get, quote unquote, anything done. Ever. I mean, to a degree they should have, but like the amount of hoops one has to jump through in the federal government to get things to become law and everything else was all intentional. It's to keep things from just randomly happening like this, to just be thrown out there and accepted. And I don't understand why she keeps throwing this whole to make existing electric and gas stoves more efficient. What your argument is against gas stoves. Why are you trying to throw electric in there? Again, it's all in how something is made. The government has no say, should have no say in how something is made. It's a little thing out there called the free market. The free market is a beautiful thing. When the free market is truly free, good things happen. If you make a decent product, let's just say a good product, let's say an amazing product, the quality is good, it lasts a long time, it's dependable, it does everything that it says it's going to do, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, people will want it. Word of mouth spreads. You will see growth and it will continue to become a popular thing and it will be successful. However, if you build crap in every sense of the word, it doesn't do what it's supposed to. It breaks easily. You can't get it fixed. It doesn't hold up to the reviews, things it said, the promises that this is made. Then guess what? No one's going to buy it. You don't need the government to say, no, this is how we're going to do it right here. We're going to do it this way. Or we need to do it this way. If you leave people alone, they're pretty much smart enough to figure this stuff out on their own. Now, will there be people and situations and times where one may have to buy a subpar product because of the price? I can't afford to buy something, this really nice, efficient thing over here. I can't buy this really nice stove. I need to buy this stove, or I need to buy this refrigerator, or whatever, because I need to have one. Sure, it costs more in the long run, and it does burn a lot more electricity and what have you, but that's kind of on me, isn't it? It's not the government's place to make that kind of decision. Granholm also clarified in a recent Energy Department study in which 96% of gas stoves failed to meet compliance levels was an inaccurate representation of how many stoves could be truly impacted by the regulation, since researchers tested outcomes for appliances expected to fall short of the standard. The full range of gas stoves absolutely is not affected. Half of the gas stoves that are on the market right now will not be impacted, even though the study showed 96%. And her excuse was, well, the researchers tested outcomes were for appliances expected to fall short. So we just tested ones we knew were going to fail. Shut up. Don't you love the hypocrisy? There's more to go. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
In today's troubled world, our USA Armed Forces stand ready to protect you, your family, and our American way of life. When veterans return to civilian life, they deserve your recognition and support. You can help put vets to work by donating your car, truck, or van to Patriotic Hearts. Your donation will directly support programs to help vets find jobs or even start their own business. Donate today for fast, free pickup of your vehicle, running or not. Operators are standing by to answer questions about making a tax-deductible vehicle donation. Find out how you can make a difference in the life of a United States veteran. Call 800-209-6482 for 24-hour response. Call 800-209-6482. 800-209-6482. That's 800-209-6482.
This is Defenders Live.
Yes! A lot of people are shocked, apparently, they're trying to be live. It's what we used to do! You shouldn't be shocked by this. You should be happy. Enjoy. I'm trying to do this. It's a lot harder doing it by myself, I will admit. Having to hit all the buttons and move everything and do all this stuff. It's a little bit more difficult. However, trying to bring everything back to the way it was a year ago-ish. As best as possible. Anyway. Follow us on all the social medias at DOAE Show. Use the hashtag ArmYourselves on Twitter. Keep an eye out for things there. You can find it on YouTube, and we stream the video live also on Twitter, which I find a lot of people are not overly thrilled about, because if you comment through Twitter, which we like you to do, we try to read it live. Of course, I'm having an issue getting all that pulled up and whatnot currently. But people who will comment through Twitter tend to get frustrated, because then they have to leave. Apparently, will leave out and then have to comment and then come back into the video or something to that effect. And it's I'm doing the best I can. Okay, I'm doing the best I can. But anyway, Democratic and Republican members of Congress renewed efforts to prohibit fellow lawmakers from trading individual stocks. Yeah. Kind of a day late and a dollar short, but several prominent lawmakers have been accused of leveraging their intimate knowledge about forthcoming regulations to purchase stocks at opportune times or mitigate losses by selling shares. Legislation introduced on Tuesday by Representative Pramila Jayapal, Democrat from Washington, and Representative Matt Rosendale, Republican from Montana. Representative Ken Buck of Colorado would ban the trading of individual stocks, bonds, commodities, futures by lawmakers and their spouses, as well as establish a $50,000 civic penalty for each violation enforced by the Department of Justice and the United States Office of Special Counsel. Again, I feel this is a day late and a dollar short, but I guess better late than never, right? I don't know. Quote, "It's past time for Washington to do the right thing and ban members of Congress from using their elected position to enrich themselves." End quote. That is according to Representative Ken Buck of Colorado. He said in a press release, quote, "Members of Congress receive information that the public does not. It is inappropriate for elected officials to then turn around and invest or buy stocks using that insider information. The American people must have trust that Congress uses this information only to conduct official business, not benefit a stock portfolio," end quote. And that's fantastic. I completely agree. I don't think there's anybody who wouldn't agree. I think Martha Stewart might actually have something to say about this as well. It's about time. The problem with it is I don't think it's going to hold weight. If they can get this thing through, which I don't think they're going to be able to push anything through on that, because again, now you're messing with their money. Now there's a lot of, folks in Congress who don't do it, who don't sneak around and who don't take advantage. But there are a lot of them who do. And the ones who do are not going to want to see that opportunity go away. It's the same reason why you're going to be really hard pressed for a lot of to get term limits passed for virtually everything, because that's the golden egg for them. They know that as long as they can maintain, it's that money that at the moment, sadly, is what pays for them to stay popular. Because then come election time, they can afford to throw out ads, to run ads constantly. They can afford to do all of this stuff that keeps their name at the forefront of everything. So when it comes time to do your civic duty and stand inside that ballot box, you go in there and you go, "I recognize this name. I don't know who this is." And most folks knee-jerk when it comes to an election and standing there in the ballot box, marking that off and doing your voting, at the very least, the devil you know is better than the devil you don't. And so they go with the guy who's there. And that's why you have someone like Joe Biden, who stayed in his position for 50 years, I believe it was, 40 years, something like that, and is now the president. Congress and the Senate is not something that somebody should make a career out of. It's supposed to be it's supposed to come from a place of servitude. You're supposed to want to help your fellow Americans. You're supposed to want to help the people in your state. You're supposed to want to help the people in your district. That's what you're supposed to be there for. Not to line your pockets, not to have some sense of power, not to ride a gravy train and do no work. Like, you're supposed to be a servant. They don't do that. As many as 97 lawmakers or their immediate family members purchased or sold related assets related to their legislative committee work between 2019 and 2021, according to an analysis published last year by the New York Times. Paul Pelosi, an investor and the husband of former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, as well as Elaine Chao, a prominent Republican who served as Transportation Secretary and the wife of the current Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell, traded individual stocks while their spouses were in leadership positions. Quote, "Only 2 in 10 Americans trust our government is working in their best interest. Members of Congress are elected to serve the people, not our own financial interests. As long as members and their spouses are allowed to trade individual stocks, and the door of corruption remains open. This legislation is long overdue, a necessary step to raise the ethical standards of Congress and restore people's trust in our work, end quote. That was from Congressperson J. Powell. The Pelosi's most recently disclosed the sale of 30,000 shares in Alphabet, parent company of Google, roughly 1 month before the Justice Department launched an antitrust lawsuit against the technology firm, news of which caused the stock price to plummet. They also appear to have cut losses by selling 25,000 shares in a software company, NVIDIA. Last year, before the United States placed new restrictions on the computer chip sales to China and Russia. Pelosi no longer serves as the House of Democrats, but as leader of God bless America. Pelosi no longer serves as leader of the House Democrats, but retains her seat in Congress. Senator Josh Hawley introduced the Preventing Elected Leaders from Owning Securities and Investment Act, also known as the Pelosi Act. Sly little devil, him. He introduced it earlier this year to address the individual stock trading phenomenon. While the bill introduced by Jay Powell, Rosendale, and Buck would permit lawmakers to continue holding diversified mutual funds and exchange-traded funds, the proposal submitted by Hawley would not allow them to hold such assets. I didn't look into Josh Hawley's proposal. I know that it did throw out there they can't exchange anything for like 2 years. Like the politician and their spouse cannot do any trading, basically buying or selling. I knew that. But I keep hearing in little bits where they can't even hold them. Like if you have them going in, there's like a freeze put on it. You can't do nothing. They just sit there. And I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that. I on the one hand, I'm thinking, hey, that might be a good idea. Completely eliminates the whole issue for even the temptation for corruption. Because just because you put it in law or pass the bill saying, hey, you can't do this, we're not allowed to do this, doesn't mean people are going to follow it. If they think they can get away with it, they will. It happens all the time. Happens in real life. It happens, I say real life. It happens in the civilian world, like now with us, amongst us, and it happens and will happen in politics. It's not going to change. So I kind of like the idea of nixing it all together, but I don't know. I don't have stocks anyway. I couldn't afford them if I wanted them. Looks too stressful to me. That's for daggone sure. I don't know. So there you go. A New York man was arrested after breaking into several daycare centers in an effort to pretend to be a baby girl named Baby Danielle, according to police. I don't know if I can. The Monroe County Sheriff's Office said that officers were called to the Inspire Learning and Child Care at Lake Road in the town of Clarkson February 18th, about 7:30 a.m., over a report of an intruder. When they arrived, they saw an open door at the center and a man running out the back door. They arrested 65-year-old Daniel Sealer and released an appearance ticket. The director of the center told investigators that they had installed surveillance cameras after they learned of a break-in on January 30th, where someone had left a handwritten note asking employees to, quote, play along, end quote, with a request for adult-sized diapers. They found $120 with the note. They found $200 on this second incident. Or on a second incident. In a third incident, February 11th, the security system alert was activated, and the director found that someone had left another note and money after rummaging through baby's diaper bins. That note contained size for pants, shoes, bras, and dresses. It also said that the man liked to pretend to be a girl named Baby Danielle. In a final incident on February 18th, the director said the surveillance video showed a man putting together 3 diapers, going into the bathroom, taking off his pants, putting on the diapers. He put his pants over the diapers before running out of the building. I don't understand this. I don't get it. If you have an inclination, if this is something you like to do, I don't understand it personally. I really don't. The idea of wanting to pretend to be a baby just kind of, especially as a grown adult, I don't know. Like, the base level is obviously you want somebody to take care of you. You want somebody to do all the work for you. You don't want responsibilities. That's kind of at surface level. I can understand that. It is nice when you, say, go into a restaurant and you purchase a meal. Someone has gone and cooked it for you. They bring it to you. They go and clean up the mess when you're done. Like, that is nice. But as a 41-year-old male, there's no way in hell that I would want to regress that far. Is there a part of me that would love to sit around and play video games and, goof off and do absolutely nothing all day while being completely cared for and having meals brought to me? That would be kind of nice, but I would probably go insane after a while. But you're a 60-something-year-old man, 65-year-old man. You clearly have money. Do you realize that you could have gone in and bought everything that you were asking the daycare center to buy? Nobody's going to question you. You go in and buy adult diapers. Nobody's going to question you. You're 65 years old. It kind of tracks. Okay? And even if you do, I have found out a long time ago, you could pretty much go and buy whatever you want and nobody really questions you on it. Now, they may initially have questions in their mind, but they're not going to approach you about it. Not really. It's the same kind of a thing. As a man, you're afraid to go buy feminine products for your wife, fiance, girlfriend, whatever, significant other. You're afraid to go do that because you're afraid that something... Nobody's going to ask questions. Is it a little awkward for a man to be coming up there with that? Sure, but most people are going to kind of go, oh, probably taking it home to his wife or his fiance or whatever, to some female in his life. They're not going to assume that you're using it. Jackwagons. I don't know. Some people do the dumbest stuff, I'm telling you. Several Democratic lawmakers in Washington State, proposed a bill that would open up law enforcement and firefighter applicant eligibility to those who cannot read or write English. Let me say that again. The several Democratic lawmakers in Washington State have proposed a bill that would open up law enforcement, and firefighter applicant eligibility to those who cannot read or write English. Now, the point of being in law enforcement, let's just start with law enforcement because it's a little bit easier at this point to really destroy. How can you enforce laws that you can't read? I'm curious. How does that work? Firefighters even more difficult, or not as difficult, because think about it. Like you hold a hose. Okay, does it make it difficult when you're a part of a team and everyone else speaks English? Sure, that can be frustrating. That can kind of cause a problem. But I mean, let's be honest. You're taking water and you're spraying it on fire. At that point, yeah. Law enforcement, however, not so much. The proposed legislation, SB 5274, would remove the English language requirement for city police officers, firefighters, fish and wildlife officers, and individuals applying for positions with the sheriff's office. According to Senator Javier Valdez and 10 other Democrats who sponsored the bill, it seeks to, quote, expand eligibility in certain civil service positions to allow lawful permanent residents to apply, end quote. I get it. You're trying to include them. You're trying to, give them. That's fantastic. The problem with it is you can't read or speak English. So what are you going to do? You're going to get a translator to follow you around everywhere you go? That doesn't make that's not efficient. Because now you're going to have to pay for the individuals, the non-English speaking or reading individual, their salary, benefits, retirement, blah, 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 blah. And now you're going to have to pay for the translator, salary, benefits, retirement, blah, 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 blah. Doesn't sound exactly very efficient, especially when you're talking about the non-English reading or speaking individual issuing a command. Again, this is I'm more focused on the law enforcement side of it. But when they issue a command, freeze, put your hands on your head. Have you been drinking tonight? License and registration. All of the kind of things that a police officer, a law enforcement individual would say. Now there's a delay because they have to say it. Then the translator has to say it. Then there's going to be a response, which the translator then has to take time to hear, comprehend, and relate back to the law enforcement officer, who, again, cannot read or speak English. I don't understand why it is that we've hit this point in our country, in society, in America, where we don't hold a standard and try to make people maintain said standard. If you go to any other country and live, even if it's for a short time, a couple months, 6 months, a year, whatever, you're not permanent, you're just living there even temporarily. Eventually, at some point, you're going to have to adapt. You're going to have to assimilate to a degree. You're going to have to learn the language. Unless you do not leave your domicile. That's just a fact. And maybe I'm being a little unfair, but there's a part of me that feels like it's almost an intentional thing. Because again, if you drop yourself into a foreign land, speaking a language you don't speak, and you're there for a certain amount of time, or a long period of time, you're going to kind of pick up things by default. Just being around it, you're just going to kind of grasp it. I feel, and again, I could be wrong, it's just something that seems to be when you have law or when they try to push bills like this, it's almost an intentional thing. It's not just, hey, I'm not picking up on this, I didn't learn English, et cetera, et cetera. Now it's, I'm not going to learn. And that's a problem for me. I have no problem with you being here. I have no problems with you maintaining part of your culture and where you come from. I'm all for it. If you are of the Hispanic nature, if you're from Russian, it doesn't matter where you're from. Be proud of who you are. Be proud of the culture you come from, where your family comes from. That's cool. That's great. But you, in order to properly be a productive member of society, you kind of have to be what a majority of society is, which is English speaking and reading. Democratic lawmakers proposed the legislation to address the state's job shortages and, quote, promote diversification Washington's public service by encouraging and highlighting bilingualism and multilingualism, end quote. You can't be bilingual if you only speak Spanish. You know what? That's an unfair statement. It just kind of dawned on me. Let me be proper with that. You cannot be bilingual if you only speak one language. Doesn't matter what language that is. I speak English. I know bits and pieces of different languages, but I'm not bilingual. There's not one language that I can speak more fluently or even as fluently as I do English. I'm monolingual, I think is the proper word. Okay? If you are bilingual, you can read and speak in other languages. Or a second language, at least. But you specifically have put in this bill that you are looking to hire people who cannot read or speak English. So unless you find a bilingual individual who speaks, say, Spanish and Russian or Chinese and Portuguese, something that weird kind of a combination, most of the people you're targeting only speak Spanish. So your argument of we're trying to encourage and highlight bilingualism, they don't speak another language. You can't highlight and encourage bilingualism, you putz. Quote, this bill gives job access to people who are qualified, but have previously been excluded from applying. With current job shortages and not enough workers to fill the roles, this intends to expand the pool of candidates. It expands applications to legal residents and waives some language requirements. They still have to meet the minimum requirements for this job, which apparently is basically, are you breathing? Do you have a heartbeat and a pulse? The House Committee on Community Safety, Justice, and Reentry is anticipated to hold an executive session next week regarding the bill. Jason Rance, a Seattle-based conservative radio talk show host, slammed the bill as attempting to advance the Democrats' quote, equity agenda and transparent attempt to socially engineer diversity while hiring unqualified candidates. I don't know if it's quite some diabolical thing. There's a lot of places that are just trying to do the whole diversity and inclusion, equity crap. And that's as deep as it gets. Well, we don't want anybody to say that we are not being diverse, so we need to just hire people because. And that's it. I don't think that there's some diabolical plan. There might be. But I don't believe that there necessarily is. I think a lot of what goes on in here is literally as shallow as it looks. Literally face value. But I don't know. Rant said, quote, if they cannot read English as a police officer, how will they be able to understand written policies, read information from the mobile data computer inside police vehicles? How do they prepare required reports if they cannot write in English? Funny, I kind of said the same thing. It's almost like him and I are in the same thing. I've never heard his stuff, by the way. Just clarity's sake, to be clear, I don't know who this man is. Never met this man before in my life. Don't know nothing about nothing. But that's common sense. How are you as a police officer going to be able to respond to a situation, be able to issue commands, be able to be effective in neutralizing a situation if you can't read or speak the language that your team does? Quote, it puts our safety at risk. These are public safety jobs. One misunderstood policy or incorrectly completed form can harm people or lead to a criminal's release. Is that inevitably truly worth this ridiculous attempt to force diversity? End quote. I think it's fair. It's a common sense question. It's an honest, fair question. I mean, if Washington State, among other places in the Northeast, the Northwest, hadn't bothered to try and spend so many years, touting and screaming defund the police, maybe this wouldn't have been such a problem. Call me crazy. I don't know, maybe not. But anyway, that's the show. Follow us on all the social medias at DOAE Show. On Twitter at DOAE Show. Use hashtag #ArmYourselves. You follow me at Dylan Lyles on Twitter. We're on Spotify. We're on iHeartRadio, YouTube. You can watch the show on Twitter. Follow us. Please follow, like, and share all this stuff. I'm trying to get a lot of this stuff is back up and running again. It's been a bit between the hiatus or just wasn't working out properly before. Now a lot of this stuff is back open again. Please show your support. If anything, just likes, shares, comments, what have you. Spread it around. That would be fantastic and help get the show back up on its feet where it was, or at least headed in that direction. Thank you guys so much. We'll see you next week. Bye, y'all.